2020 fucking sucked! With, a couple of cool moments, thrown in between, right? What? No, it was a fucking dumpster fire! But you gotta admit, there were a couple of interesting things thrown in there that made you excited, right? Yeah, but... Okay, look. An entire year can't be comprised completely of good or bad stuff. There's always gonna be some in between as well. So, look. In honor of 2020, I've decided I'm gonna list my top 5 highs and bottom 5 lows of the year. Let's begin. Anime sequels and conclusions. 2020 was actually a really great year for anime. Not only was there a bunch of new shows that were really fun and entertaining to watch, but we also got the continuation and conclusion of a lot of series. From Re:Zero finally getting its 2nd season after so many years, to My Hero Academia concluding its 4th at the beginning of the year. And then even to Higurashi, which was a surprise sequel and not a remake as a lot of people thought it was. That was mind-blowing. In terms of conclusion, Food Wars aired its final season and ended it on a very nice and sweet note, even if the season itself wasn't that great. We also got the conclusion to My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu, which is a conclusion I didn't think we would ever receive. Plus, Attack on Titan's final season is currently airing as we speak. 2020 kept us busy with finishing off and continuing series that we held dear, as well as introducing brand new shows into the mix as well. If you were an anime lover, 2020 was definitely a good year for you. Cyberpunk 2077. What a terrible way to end the year, huh? Cyberpunk was supposed to be that light at the end of the tunnel. It was supposed to dawn a new year for us. It was supposed to bring gaming to the next generation. And instead, especially if you were playing on old gen consoles, this is what you got. Now, to be fair, the game isn't 100% absolutely terrible. You can still have a lot of fun with the game. I think the writing and the scenarios thought up in the game are actually really entertaining. And Keanu Reeves as Johnny Silverhand is fucking awesome. Plus, I'll admit, I like to see the various glitches on parade.
Go! Yo.
What the fuck?
Yet, it's not so fun when you're on the receiving end of it. Truthfully, CD Projekt Red found itself in a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. Do they release the game broken and have gamers and investors pissed off at them? Or do they delay the game again and have gamers and investors pissed off at them? Well, personally, I'd go for the latter. Still, even if the game had come out completely bug-free, I don't see this being the nirvana that so many people thought it was going to be. It's still just another open world game with a checklist of boring activities to participate in. While there are some interesting side missions, there's a ton that are just a repeat of go here, sneak there, shoot these guys, rescue generic person, disarm the damn cameras over and over and over again. What's worse is that CG Projekt Red found itself in hot water after going back on its promise to not have mandatory crunch, and then found itself in even hotter water when it said the mandatory crunch wasn't even that bad. Yeah, this company quickly went from being the poster child of how to run a game development studio to a pure example of how not to run a video game studio. But now, I have a question for you, CD Projekt Red. Seriously, was the crunch worth it? Especially looking at the final product. Was the crunch, the misery that you put your workers in, was it worth it? Really ask yourself that. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Final Fantasy VII Remake was announced back in 2015 before going completely silent for a couple of years. This silence made a lot of people very worried about the development of the game. And when we finally did start to get information about it, it was more questionable than anything else. The game is gonna be told in segments rather than in one full package. Okay, that's a little bit weird. Also, the first part is only gonna take place in the city of Midgar. Okay, but isn't that just a few hours long in the least? Oh no, we're gonna be padding out the game, so this entire segment will be as if it were a full-blown 40-plus hour adventure. But then, isn't this more technically a reimagining than a remake? With as beloved as the original was and how near and dear it still is to many people to this day, it was no surprise that a lot of us were very worried. Yet, when the game was released, not only was it good, it was freaking great! Okay, sure, it wasn't perfect. The game does feel a bit bloated, but what it delivered was very entertaining. Not only was this a sort of retelling of the original for those who may not have been familiar with it, but for fans, they got some truly mind-blowing stuff, including an ending that made us extremely excited for how the series would continue from here on out. I personally am super excited to see what they do with the next installment. I just really hope we don't have to wait another 5 years for it. The console pre-order debacle. The signs were there from the start. Sony and Microsoft holding out on announcing anything about their consoles until the other company folded first. Heck, many people wondered if the damn things were even going to be coming out this year. And when they finally were unveiled to us, yeah, it was really exciting. That was short-lived, however, as we got into the pre-orders. It started with Sony announcing that the PS5 pre-orders would go live the morning of September 16th. Except that retailers said fuck that and made it so that anyone could pre-order 2 hours after the PS5 event had concluded the day before. This meant that anyone waiting in line to pre-order the next day would be in for a very rude awakening. Websites, meanwhile, were a clusterfuck of crashes, slowdowns, and the systems just plain up disappearing from people's cards. It was such a disaster that Microsoft, rightfully so, completely made fun of Sony, saying that don't worry, their pre-orders would go a lot smoother, and then dropped the mic and started walking off stage. What followed was the equivalent of Microsoft tripping over the mic that it had just dropped, tumbling down a bunch of stairs and falling flat on their face in front of the audience. Yep, that's right, the damn same thing happened with the Xbox Series X pre-orders. After this, many stories came out about bots being the cause of the website woes, where programs were being built to hit the pre-order buttons faster than any human could, meaning that people had a very limited chance of snagging one online. Meanwhile, there were reports of store associates pre-ordering all of the consoles allotted to their stores and then selling them online for $1,000+. This is really frustrating, as I feel a lot of the things that happened could have been prevented, especially online if you had done some sort of ticketing system, where only a certain amount of people were able to pre-order at any one given time. As of right now, the really sad thing is that there's still a lot of people who are really not going to be able to get their hands on these consoles until early next year. Parasite wins Best Picture at the Oscars. There was a lot of anticipation for who was going to win Best Picture at the 92nd Academy Awards. The race was really between 3 films. The very gimmicky 1917, the fun Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the fantastic Parasite. A lot of people were really predicting 1917 to take it home, as an international feature film had never really won Best Picture before. Yet, when the evening was said and done, not only had Parasite won Best Picture, but it won 5 out of its 6 awards, which is just fucking fantastic. It was a moment of clarity, almost as if they were saying, hey, we're sorry about Green Book winning last year. Here, we'll give one to Parasite. Maybe Hollywood wasn't filled with a bunch of stuck-up pricks.
I've been thinking a lot about some of the distressing issues that we are facing collectively.
Oh.
We agree on our teachers, and we agree on our courageous men and women in uniform who serve. We agree on our first responders and firefighters.
Oh.
Thank you so much. When I was young and studying cinema, there was a saying that I carved deep into my heart, which is the most personal is the most creative.
Yeah! While other actors wanted to talk about issues that they most likely had never and would never face in their lives, Bong Joon-ho instead spoke about his love of film. Yeah, we love movies too! That's why we watch these award shows! Not to hear these stuck-up pricks lecture us on things that just make them look good. Now, naturally, there were some haters that an international feature film ended up winning Best Picture, but strangely enough, I think the naysayers were really drowned out by the people that were just celebrating and glad that a great film had won. It was truly a fantastic moment for the Oscars, and just for movies in general. The Last of Us Part 2 and the aftermath. This one stings a lot, as I really don't consider The Last of Us Part 2 to be a bad game. It actually does a lot of things really good. Its combat is still very enjoyable. I think the atmosphere is still really well done. And what they did with just the compatibility, what they did with their options when it came to accessibility, that is just masterful. Kudos on them. It also ran really good on the PS4. But the game wasn't without its problems, mainly the way that it handled its characters and set-piece moments. Motivation seemed to not have been given as much thought, and the combat, for as fun as it was, wore thin by the end of its unnecessarily long campaign. The whole experience felt like they were just trying to be edgy and dark without being mature as well, just as if they were trying to elicit a reaction. Yet what followed afterwards was so much worse. Angered by the direction that the game went with, many people spoke out against it in the worst ways possible. Homophobic remarks were thrown, sexist comments were made, and some of the voice actors were sent death threats just because they didn't like the characters they voiced. Ain't that some fucking stupid shit? It was some of the most disgusting things that you can imagine. Understandably, the critics and developers came to the defense. The problem with this was that even the people who had legitimate complaints with the game were thrown in with the hateful group. Review publications called the game a masterpiece and insulted anyone who could not see it as such. One even, embarrassingly, calling it the Schindler's List of video games. What the fuck's wrong with you? When the concern with the length of the game came into play, Troy Baker decided to throw out a quote from Teddy Roosevelt? Which felt like the oddest thing ever since, it's a fucking video game. Honestly, it was as if the hate that was the central focus of the game itself spread out and infected everybody who got their hands on it. And for the first time, I really felt ashamed to be part of the gaming community. And that's something that I never ever experience, even when things get ugly. And for that to do that to me this year, it is such a shame. Animal Crossing New Horizons releases at just the right moment. By the end of March, we had gone into quarantine. It was a really scary time for a lot of people. People were afraid of getting sick, of dying. And we had to ask ourselves the question, how long would this last for? How high is the death toll gonna go? And of course, most importantly, what would we do for entertainment? But then, coming down from the heavens, Animal Crossing New Horizons released, almost as if it was the second coming of Jesus. It delivered to us the entertainment that we needed, no, that we deserved. Okay, all jokes aside, Animal Crossing did come out just when people did need it most. It helped distract us from the chaos of the world, and it put smiles on many faces. And that's something important that cannot be underestimated. People sunk massive hours into the game, creating unique villages that honestly are really impressive to see. It wasn't just gamers though. Celebrities and politicians got in on the action as well, creating things like talk shows and campaigning for the upcoming elections.
Now number 5. I never wanna hear you say, woo! I want it that way. Oh, chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 killed my brother.
Oh my god, I forgot about that part.
It was truly a beautiful thing to behold, and it showed the power that video games could deliver. Video game companies continue to be horrible. It seemed like we couldn't go a single month in 2020 without hearing some horrifying news about a game company abusing its employees. From the crunch that Naughty Dog and CD Projekt Red pushed on its employees, to the continued disgusting actions of Activision Blizzard firing employees only to hire new ones at a lower salary. If you thought nothing came at the expense of video games, well, guess again. How about Bobby Kotick being one of the highest paid CEOs in the world, yet that's still not being enough for him. So much to the point that investors had to tell everybody to not give him any more bonuses because he was just making too much. Meanwhile, his own employees couldn't even afford the food that was being served in the cafeteria. In their own goddamn fucking cafeteria. Or how about Ubisoft leaders being sexist and abusive assholes that finally, after years of reports being filed against them and ignored, had to be terminated after those said reports began to leak to major publications. Meanwhile, Yves Guillemot had to make the tough decision to fire these people. What's so tough about firing abusers? Shouldn't really be a tough decision, should it? Oh, and lest not we forget, he doesn't want you to think that he knew anything about what was happening within his own company. Yeah, bullshit. Either that or he is so incompetent that he should not be in that position to begin with. CEOs, come here for a minute. Let me let you in on a little secret. You are just as expendable as all those employees that you manage, that you just flip off on a dime only to replace with somebody else. Truthfully, do you think the companies you work at, if you were to leave, if you were to just say, nah, I'm not doing it anymore, do you think that those people that had their hands within the company would just let it crumble to bits? Nah. I don't know what it is fully that all you CEOs think you do, but it is easily replaced. Just like all those people that you replace. And yes, I know it's hard to make out what they are from so high up, but those are people. Give them fucking salaries that they can live off of. At the very least, fucking feed them. Can't fucking afford food at the cafeteria. That's so fucking stupid. Warner Bros. Announces they're releasing their films of 2021 to HBO Max. Okay, so maybe it's because this is still new and I'm very, very excited about it, but holy shit, was this the thing that got me the most pumped to hear about in 2020? And I know, movie theaters are fucking pissed right now, as is Christopher Nolan, but who cares about him? Is this the death of movie theaters? Well, make no mistake, it's gonna happen eventually. People just like comfort, they like accessibility, and it just doesn't make sense to spend so much money going to the movie theaters when you can have a cheaper experience in the comfort of your own home. Yes, it's sad to think that movie theaters are gonna start closing down, and I feel for anybody that might lose their job during this time. However, I still think that there's gonna be theaters for the time being. Because Warner Bros. Also announced that while these films may be coming out to HBO Max, they're also releasing in theaters at the same time. And maybe it's just me, but films like Wonder Woman or films like Black Widow, I would really like to see in the theaters over watching them at home. And I think there's still going to be plenty of people that do like doing that as well. I love the movie theater experience, I do. But just like how video game retailers have learned the hard way that accessibility of just being home and buying things from home is going to be the death of their industry, theaters are now learning that just being able to watch these movies at home and not have to pay as much is going to be the death of theirs. It's tough to hear, but hey, it's the truth. people. Yeah, look, I was trying not to go political with any of my picks here, because this is more entertainment than anything. So I'll try to keep that to a minimum while focusing more on the entertainment industry. But yeah, people in 2020 in general. There was so much terrible news of not just big companies like Activision Blizzard and their CEOs and GameStop fucking forcing their employees to work because they were thought of as essential business. Fuck off with that. But just people in general, just being terrible. I mean, to the aforementioned Last of Us, just debacle, where they decided that they were going to send death threats to the voice actors who had nothing to do with the game development, to people attacking a woman who said, hey, be careful, Cyberpunk has possible epileptic movements that triggered me. They sent videos to this lady to try to trigger her just because they didn't like that she spoke out against Cyberpunk. It is truly baffling what people have done in 2020. I think this year in particular has made me see humanity in a completely different light. Something that I knew was there from the beginning, that I mentioned just in my day-to-day life, but I think I saw it more this year than anything before, and that there is lack of empathy for the common man. Not just big CEOs, not just companies, but just regular people are so unempathetic to others. And it is a sad thing to witness. And that's why I think people, in general, is the worst thing that I've seen in 2020. Anyway, not to leave you guys on such a downer, but yeah, it's the end of the year, so we got another year to look forward to. This pandemic really isn't gonna go away anytime soon. But hey, there's always gonna be some good mixed in with the bad, just as there's always gonna be some bad mixed in with the good. I can only look forward to and hope that 2021 will be better. I know I'm gonna try to be, and I hope you will be as well. So, in the meantime, let me know what your highs and lows of the year were. What are you really excited for next year? And what do you hope will change next year for the better? Stay safe out there, guys. And until next time, have a good one.